We lost two amazing talents this summer. We just talked about Arlene Sorkin, who played the original Harley Quinn, and became the voice talent behind that. Now we're going to talk about an amazing artist in John Romita Sr., who basically constructed Spider-Man during he uses the Spider-Man I kind of grew up with in comics. And let's talk about him right now. All right, we're back to talk about John Romita Sr. This is the second part of my two-part series about the talents that we had lost this summer. And we just talked about Arlene Sorkin, and now let's talk about John Romita Sr. So again, I will be reading some things, especially some quotes from him. So again, I'm reading it. It's because I am reading because I want to make sure that I get all these points correct, and I'm doing justice to these people. And I will be, breaking to. There was an interview with him and Stan Lee where they talk back and forth. I'm going to show some clips from that, and maybe a clip of him drawing and things to that effect. So stay tuned for all that right now. But let's jump right into his biography. So John Romita Sr. was best known for his work on Marvel Comics' The Amazing Spider-Man and for co-creating characters such as Mary Jane Watson, The Punisher, Kingpin, Wolverine, and Luke Cage. So I'm sure many, many people are very, those are obvious characters because the Netflix shows, almost every one of those characters is in the Netflix show except for Wolverine. And everybody knows who Wolverine is. So think about that. This is the guy that created the characters behind those shows. And they were created in the 60s, 70s. And now in 2023, they're some of the most popular characters in the world. And that's what an amazing accomplishment. So, and a lot of people don't even realize that who these creators are. They know Stan Lee, but they don't know anybody else behind Stan Lee. So Stan Lee is purely a writer. Without the look and feel of the characters, what's writing? What's writing without visual? So these are the guys that propped Stan Lee up with their visuals. So let's continue. He began working exclusively for DC from 1958 to 1965. Again, I wasn't even born yet. And was the artist for many of their romance comics. Romita joined Marvel in 1965, so he was basically purged by Stan Lee. So Romita joined Marvel in 1965, initially drawing Daredevil, again, Netflix, and then of course we won't even mention the show from She-Hulk, their appearance there. In 1966, when Spider-Man artist and co-creator Steve Ditko, so remember, Stan Lee didn't create Spider-Man alone. So Steve Ditko was the artist behind the creation of Spider-Man. But when he left Marvel, Romita was chosen by writer Stan Lee as the new artist for Amazing Spider-Man. Within a year of Romita becoming the Spider-Man artist, The Amazing Spider-Man rose from Marvel's second best title to the company's top seller. Anybody know what the top seller was before that? Anyone? We still haven't seen a good movie out of them, the Fantastic Four. So Fantastic Four was, I think that Stan Lee created Fantastic Four as a alternative to the Justice League. So he kind of created a family group. Romita brought a new romance style to Spider-Man. Remember, he was drawing romance stuff before this, and I think during one of the interview things, Stan Lee said, I don't care if he was drawing romance stuff. because the rest of Marvel didn't want him. He's an artist. He can do anything.
When Johnny came to us after leaving DC, I wanted you to do Daredevil and adventure strips, and everybody said to me, well, you can't let him do that. He does romance strips. And I said, you idiots, this guy is an artist. It doesn't matter what he does.
In 1973, so I was born now, Romita was promoted to Marvel's art director and heavily influenced the look of Marvel Comics throughout the 1970s and 1980s. Romita was inducted into the Will Eisner Book Hall of Fame in 2002. So he became a Hall of Famer. Marvel editor Stan Lee, however, had heard of Romita leaving DC and asked to see him. At a 3-hour meeting over lunch, you know he's going well if you have a meeting over lunch and it goes 3 hours. where the waiter is eyeing you, waiting for you to leave. Stan Lee promised to match the agency's salary if Romita would come to work for Marvel and to give him flexibility to work at home or at the office on any given day in Romita's discretion. Though Romita felt he no longer wanted to pencil, in favor of being solely an inker, Lee soon enticed him otherwise. So here's these two guys feeding off one another, right? So Lee needs somebody to take over for Ditko. He doesn't know if he's even the right guy, if Romita's really even the right guy.
Remember, Steve Ditko had been doing Spider-Man magnificently, and then when he decided he didn't want to do any more Spider-Man, and we had to look around he was just tired of Spider-Man, we had to look around for another artist. Who did I pick? I figured, well, there's one guy I can always depend on, John Romita, and again, everybody said, John draws these handsome, heroic characters, these real macho-looking, great-looking guys, and here Peter Parker is just kind of a wimpy, nebbishy, nerdy kid.
And here he is, the guy that he thinks is going to take over, tells him at lunch, I don't think I want to pencil anymore. I just want to be an inker. So if anybody knows anything about comics, it's not one artist. So you have, now with computers, it's a little different, but I still do it the old way. I still have various artists. I don't have one artist doing everything. But I know that there are ones that do. They basically do the ink work immediately in the tablet. But there's a penciler, there's an inker, and then there's a colorist, and there's also a letterer. So all these people still exist, and in my comics, I still have all those people. And then I would be the writer and the editor. In the case of Marvel and DC, there's a separate editor. So there's a writer who's also an editor. I play both those roles for my comics. So I want to read this quote. This is a quote from Romita. I had inked an Avengers job for Stan, and I told him I just wanted to ink. I felt like I was bummed out as a penciler after 8 years of romance work. I didn't want to pencil anymore. In fact, I couldn't work at home anymore. I just couldn't discipline myself. He said, okay. This is Stan said, okay. But the first appearance he shows me this Daredevil story. Somebody had started and he didn't like it. I've been down that road before myself. And he wanted somebody else to do it instead. He showed me Dick Ayer's splash page for Daredevil and asked me, what would I do with this page? So he's testing him. I showed him on tracing paper. People don't know what tracing paper is. Paper? What's that? But tracing paper obviously was very, very thin paper that you could put over another drawing. And that's how a lot of animation was done, because they wanted to move just a little bit. So they would use this very thin paper to match the previous drawing and then alter it slightly. Of course, now we got computers, so we don't have any of that anymore. Then he asked me to do a drawing of Daredevil the way I would do it. I did a big drawing of Daredevil, just a big tracing paper drawing of Daredevil swinging, and Stan loved it. And that was the end of the quote. Lee wrote a 2-part Daredevil story from issues 16 to 17, and that was from May to June 1966, and Spider-Man was guest starring in it. Obviously a test again. He wanted to test him to see how he would do Spider-Man in a Daredevil book. When Romita's depiction of Spider-Man would eventually become the company's mascot and the definitive look to the general public, the artist had trepidations. And again, we're going to go to the quote. So this is Romita talking. I was hoping against it. Believe it or not, people laugh when I say this, but I did not want to do Spider-Man. I wanted to stay on Daredevil. The only reason I did Spider-Man was because Stan asked me, and I felt that I should help him out. Like a good soldier. Interesting. I never really felt comfortable on Spider-Man for years. I felt obliged to mimic Ditko because I was convinced in my own mind that he was going to come back in 2 or 3 issues. I couldn't believe that a guy would walk away from such a successful book that was the 2nd highest seller at Marvel. And after 6 months, when I realized it wasn't temporary, I finally stopped trying to mimic Ditko, and I was doing these 9-panel pages and the thin line, and I was doing Peter Parker without any bone structure. Just like Ditko was doing, I thought.
How many issues did you do?
I did about 6 years. The only thing is you used to sprinkle in a lot of other emergency projects at the time. Captain America, Fantastic Four.
We couldn't have stayed in business without you. Anytime there was an emergency, call Romita.
Just FYI, he's the one that did the story with the death of Gwen Stacy. That's one of the most famous books of all time for Spider-Man, which was the Green Goblin. Lee later commented that his transition in Romita's style actually worked out for the benefit of the series, as it was gradually weaned readers off of Ditko, while ultimately allowing Romita to work in the style he most excelled at. Romita took over The Amazing Spider-Man with issue number 39 in August of 1966. Isn't that interesting? He died in June, and August was when he actually created it, so it's amazing that it was that close. Romita designed the look of Mary Jane Watson, a supporting character in the Spider-Man series who would later become the lead character's romantic interest, even till today. Although I don't know why they keep trying to break them apart, but Marvel continues to try to break them apart. And right now, I don't think that Spider-Man has anyone. Romita had stated that in designing Mary Jane, he used Anne Margaret from the movie Bye Bye Birdie as a guide. Romita and his wife had 2 sons, Victor and John Jr., who was born in 1956, who followed in his footsteps to become a noted comic book artist himself. And that is true. John Romita Jr., or JRJR, has been a comic book artist for many, many years. I personally am not a fan of his work, but I know a lot of people are. It's a completely different style from his father. Romita died in his sleep at his home in Floral Park, New York, on June 12, 2023. So a couple months ago, at the time of this recording. He was 93 years old. He will go down in history as one of the quintessential comic book artists, and especially one of the major influences on the present rendition of Spider-Man. He will be missed by his fans throughout the world.
You thought Spider-Man would be a temporary job because I was afraid to tell you I wanted you permanently because I was afraid you wouldn't want to do it. So I practiced my usual deceitful methods. John, just do one more issue. Oh, come on, one more. We'll find somebody. Don't worry. Before he knew it, it was 6 years.
So that's all I have for this one, but I hope we were able to jump into his life a little bit to show what an influence he was on Spider-Man. And a lot of people don't realize what a comic book character evolution looks like. And this is definitely one of them, going from Ditko to John Romita, basically without a beat change seamlessly, because he copied the look and then gradually did his own. And I would argue that the John Romita Spider-Man is the one that everybody really, in their mind, that's what Spider-Man looks like, is the Romita Spider-Man. All right. I'm not going to plug my own work, but yes, I have my own books and comics. If you want to watch one of my other videos, I also put a link in the description, but I'm not going to jump into that out of respect. And but I will ask you guys to like and subscribe if you can, because I am trying to grow my channel out to do more work like this. Usually my takes on things are a lot more bubbly, but because of what we're talking about here, the subject matter, I wanted to keep it a little bit more serious. But thank you again so much for watching, and thank you for supporting my channel, and I appreciate you all. Thank you again. And if you haven't yet, please check out the video about Arlene Sorkin as well. A tremendous lady.